Do you not just imagine Magnum holding the dead girl in the bikini, looking up at the camera like, no?
I want the Ferrari. It's
No.
it's all about the Ferrari, and I want to call him Higgins, but that's not right.
No,
Getting all
Higgins.
mad. Is it Higgins?
Yeah.
Because here's my issue. I'm glad I was right, but my issue now is Higgins is a different guy. Higgins is running.
The Howard Johnson in Blazing Saddles.
No, also he's in Ted Lasso.
Is he?
Yeah, Leslie Higgins.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay. Not the same actor, the same name.
No, same name.
Yeah. Longhorn,
So
Jonathan Hillerman, Longhorn graduate.
But now that's Higgins.
Yeah.
But yes, that certainly.
But Magnum PI was my Dukes of Hazzard. Like, I didn't tune into Dukes of Hazzard the way I did for Magnum PI.
Well, again, we have a 5-year age difference, so there's a thing. Dukes of Hazzard it wasn't as blatantly racist as you can recognize it is now. But at least at that time, it was every Friday night, Saturday night, whichever night it was on, you camped in front of the TV and watched them destroy cars. And it was the ultimate extension of Smokey and the Bandit in a way that was consumable for TV, because you had the law enforcement that were bumbling idiots, and you had the bad guys who were the anti-heroes who everybody worshipped and loved, to the point that they tried to replace them in the middle of the series, and nobody really noticed. Coy and Vance. The other cousins that you never talked about.
Yeah, the other cousins.
You never even saw them at Thanksgiving in a future episode.
No,
that's how close.
No, I mean, I'm old enough to at least remember Dukes of Hazzard being appointment television. But I think what I'm saying is I've watched the entire series of Magnum PI 3 times, twice in the last 6 years.
I don't even think you can watch Dukes of Hazzard anymore. I think it was on CMT for a while, but I don't even think it's there anymore.
Not streaming anywhere?
No, because I think
seems weird.
The car is problematic, to the point that I had to take pictures of the car in my parking garage, because somebody thought that was a good idea. It will not surprise you to know that he has a Charlie Kirk sticker on his windshield now.
That's a person that we on this show love and adore.
I mean, he's the modern Jesus.
We don't want to get Colbert or Kimmeled.
Yeah, all of our sponsors would pull out.
Yeah, all of them.
That changed the show. Yeah. I don't think Jessica's going to pull out. She's our sponsor.
Usually I'm the one that does that.
Exactly. That's your job.
Boom. Hey, so The Athletic just posted an article of the top 10 available and might be available managerial jobs in Major League Baseball. The Astros are listed as the 7th best situation. I can quibble with the number, but more to the point, it seems like probably there's not going to be a change at this point. Is that what you would guess, or do you still think that there's time for that to happen? And then how do you feel about that?
I don't know that there's not going to be a change. And here's the media availability that they gave, I guess, Tuesday, they being Dana Brown and Joe Espada, was remarkably non-committal from Dana Brown's side, other than there's a contract and I expect him to be in place. I don't want to talk about my contract. I expect me to be in place. Those were kind of the quotes that went around. Jim Crane hasn't spoken, and Jim Crane is the person ultimately making those two decisions. I think in this weird world that Jim Crane is probably watching pretty closely the Guardians-Tigers Game 3 today and trying to figure out a path forward there. And you can read into that what you will, but I think a conversation will certainly be had about can certain fences be mended. But I think it's premature at this point to say nothing's going to change from those two spots, just because we don't know. And I would like to think different from the last couple of times we've had to make changes, that Crane has learned his lesson, that if he's going to make a change, he's got somebody lined up to put in place immediately and not go through this farce of a search when you're just going to hire the internal guy, or you're just going to hire the brand name that's on the market right now kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see. But I think at this point, GM would worry me more than manager if I was one of those two, because that's the one that's technically got to have a contract picked up, and Crane hasn't committed to doing that yet.
Yeah.
And as we know, he was fully willing to send James Click to the baseball winter meetings with no contract, just to see if things, shook out. So I don't know, and I don't think anybody who's telling you they do know knows anything. But this is still up to Jim Crane.
Well, I will say this,
spoken.
that it looks like AJ Hinch's contract extension talks did stall out, according to the Detroit Free Press, over the last couple of weeks with the meltdown. Is it bad that part of me is like, when you talk about the Guardians Detroit series, I'm like, ooh, Terry Francona.
I don't. Again, Jim Crane likes brand names. He knows the names that he knows, and I don't know that either of those guys would be a bad fit for what this clubhouse is probably going to look like for next year. Because it is going to still be veteran laden, but you're going to have a guy who understands how to work in younger players. Mm-hmm. One of the things we haven't talked about, and injuries were a giant part of this, so I'm excusing a little bit, but we haven't talked about how Cam Smith went from being an 800 OPS guy through July to falling off the map 600. After that. And the TV broadcast teams did a really good job of summing it up. Every game he played past, I think, 102 was the most games he's ever played in a year. And you get worn out, and you started seeing these articles about how clever the Astros were being with his usage, about, well, we don't make him hustle to the batting cages. He doesn't have to be the first one out. When what he needed was days off. Yeah. He needed to be platooned.
You said that back. You said that after the trade deadline, you said you thought the best part of the trade deadline was he would get platooned, and he did not.
Because regardless of what we think as fans, and I know most of us underestimate it, 162 games is a grind.
Sure.
And if your body is not used to it, no matter how in shape you are, baseball is littered with stories of the first time through rookies just hitting a wall and falling off. And it doesn't foretell anything about what their future is going to be. But if this guy was the centerpiece of your trade, the Kyle Tucker trade, which to all accounts he was, the organization should have protected him better than what we saw. Now, Yordan Alvarez was out. Jake Myers was out. Melton was out for some extended time. DeCenzo never came back. I don't even know if he's still alive.
Hey, the other thing you're missing in that category, though, is that Jesus Sanchez, the guy that Dana Brown traded for, became unplayable.
Yeah, I mean, so there were a lot of factors in that kept Cam Smith in the lineup a lot more than he should have been. But the way it ended up happening was almost malpractice for that guy. So I'm hoping that it was just injuries, and Joe Espada isn't a guy that doesn't know how to deal with rookie players, because I think you're going to see more and more of them as this team continues to age. And so that's got to be part of the calculus too. Is Joe Espada the right guy for what this team is going to evolve into? And ultimately it's Jim Crane's call, so we'll see what happens. If I was a betting man, I'm probably 51% no changes versus 49% changes, but it's still close enough that I think it could go either way.
Yeah, I don't see a change in the DH. In the GM. I think, part of the task we've known that Dana Brown had to handle wasn't necessarily, we really weren't looking at him for his in-season trade deadline stuff. It was all about how's he rebuilding the farm system. And it seems like he's doing that. And I think that his ability to scout young players and to we saw what he did with the Braves is probably enough to keep him. But where I am on I like Joe Espada. I think he's probably a really good guy, but injuries are a thing. But how many times in April did we do this show, scratch our head and say, well, why did we use Hader for a 2-inning save or a 4-out save? Or why did Hader go in a tie game and we kept saying, I remember I know one of the guys that watches the show texted me after and said I was a moron for that. But I said, I don't care about games in April. We're going to need them in September. And guess who we didn't have in September maybe because he was overused in April and May. And that was Josh Hader. Josh Hader, Andy, is the injury that cost us the playoffs. All the other ones are great, but that's the most important injury the Astros endured. And all you needed to do was watch all those leads evaporate to see why.
Well, to your point, Hader was, I think I can't remember who posted it, but 3 runs or less, the Astros lost all those games down the stretch except for 2 of them. And that's we saw Abreu blow saves, and that I think again was a usage issue and not necessarily being ready for the role, but also not having a setup guy because smaller play. But Bennett Sousa going out immediately after Josh Hader went out did not help the bullpen situation at all. I think with Espada, one of the things you saw, and only Joe Espada could really answer this, is the Astros got off to a horrendous start in 2024. And I think he was managing in April to prevent that from happening in 2025. And if you start talking about bullpen usage with your 31-year-old all-star closer, did you sacrifice getting some of those wins in April to lose him for all of September?
And by the way, we don't even know if September's the end of it.
We don't.
I mean, that's the thing that I'm afraid of is that we're going
to. He never started throwing again.
No, he never started throwing again. They had kept this whole for the playoffs thing alive, but I think we would have found out pretty quickly that wasn't going to happen. But I mean, I'm worried about, did we rob Peter to pay Paul with Paredes? Like, is he going to report to spring training okay? And, you know, the World Baseball Classic is happening again. So, I mean, it just seems like, I don't know. I don't have a very positive
outlook. Half the year is what you're saying?
Huh?
Altuve will be out half the year because.
Well, I'm hoping that Altuve is recognizing that he is 36 years old now, or going to be, and
maybe they just let him be manager.
Wouldn't that be funny? The first time he gets tossed, it'd be midget tossing.
I just meant from Venezuela. I don't mean for the Astros.
Oh, okay. Then you meant for the Astros. Yeah, the people on the Astros Twitter want Maldonado. I actually think Maldonado probably would be a good manager someday. I don't think it's now.
I think Maldonado would be an excellent bench coach for a team like this because he is somebody who has been a player up until, you know, I guess whenever the Padres get eliminated, and knows how to talk and also should know, I think catchers do know how pitchers are reacting to certain situations and would be able to be in somebody like Joe Espada's ear a little bit more about this is bad, this is good, pull him now, leave him in, let's see what happens. I don't know how much that he's getting from Omar Lopez. I assume some, but I think a recent player certainly – I think Martin Maldonado ultimately, if he wants to, is going to be an excellent major league manager. But I think he's going to need to start off as a bench coach type guy, and I think he'd be really, really good in that role because – again, one of his gifts, one of the reasons he's still with the Padres is his ability to manage the clubhouse as a player.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing when you talk about chemistry. And I know in this world of high analytic baseball that all we care about is plugging in the right number guy in the right slot. But the chemistry piece in that clubhouse is still vital at this level. And I would argue maybe one of the most vital pieces.
You know, it's funny. The name that the first time around I wouldn't have been into, but you know, I think somebody. If you look at Brad Ausmus's career path, where, you know, ironically enough, Detroit, right, was his first job, and then where did he go after that?
Anaheim.
Anaheim, being the front office, right? He was in the front office for a bit, doing that. Now he's the bench coach with the Yankees. I mean, that's the same path that AJ Hinch had. He had a bad managerial start. Then he went and learned the front office part of the job. And then sliding into the man. I mean, it's the part of Joe Espada, like we said, this is not an on-the-job training job. And he's learning a lot of stuff. I think even if he gets fired from the Astros, he'll manage again and probably do a much better job wherever he is. But I don't know that it's working. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure I don't know what the reaction is if he comes back. I don't know if he's as beloved in the manager in the role as like Dusty Baker was.
I don't know that I'm sure he's liked. I don't know that he's beloved. And I don't know I don't know that he has the gravitas at this point to pull a team together that's in the doldrums.
Well, we saw he did. We saw it.
I mean, for all of Dusty Baker's sins, and we talked about a lot of them on the show, the inability to manage a bullpen correctly, the forgetting that you had certain pitchers for weeks on end, the falling in love with one player at the one pinch hitter at the detriment of three others. He knew how to win regular season games, and if you want the key to keeping a team of 21 to 35-year-olds focused in the same directions, it's figuring out that day-to-day battle of winning games and keeping guys engaged in that bigger picture. And I think Dusty Baker had a gift for that, because everywhere he went, he won regular season games. Making the playoffs was never a problem for Dusty Baker. It was winning the big one, which he finally did in 2022, because he had so much talent that he couldn't manage his way out of it.
Yeah.
But keeping the clubhouse together was a big deal. And having the team that he had in 2022 and to some extent in 2023 gave him the success that he realized in Houston, but he's a big piece of that. The Astros have missed that since then.
Yeah. I mean, I think in many ways, Baker's best managing job was his first year, when he had to navigate COVID and almost understanding that the regular season was probably going to be a wash, but getting him into the playoffs and then what was a pretty snake bit team to Game 7 of the ALCS was not a small accomplishment. And if Randy Arozarena hadn't just done a bunch of spinach or steroids, the Astros maybe would have lost to the Dodgers, but would have been in the playoffs. Would have been in the World Series. So
even then, I think what did you figure? 2 Jose Altuve throws to first base away from being in the World Series that year. You can look back at whenever this window closes, whenever this era is, and say the Astros should have won more World Series. And I would argue with the talent from 2017 on, maybe 1 or 2 more would have been better. I mean, it would have been.
I think you definitely can look at 2019 and 2023 as years you should have won the World Series.
Yeah. But we're talking about one of the top 4 longest playoff appearance streaks in baseball history.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be the Braves, who won the NL East for 14 years in a row in the 90s and managed 1 World Series out of all that. So it could be worse. But I don't think the window's closed, so maybe I'm just an idiot. But
yeah, I just can't believe that the window is closed. I don't think you can have the same conversation where you're on the one hand pointing out the most WAR on the injured list according to Fangraphs, and then looking at you're losing your and Hader was on his way to maybe being the second best closer in baseball that season. Like, he was dominant. I think what was he, like 33 of 34 for save opportunities? Like the game was 8 innings long when you had Josh Hader available. Yep. And then, of course, losing Yordan, I think that the odds are you're not going to have 19 injuries again. Like, that's just the odds.
I think one of the problems with the way we as fans tend to analyze things is that we look for the solution, the one solution, and multiple things could have gone wrong this year. Injuries certainly were a giant part of it, but managerial mistakes can also be a part of it. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So, yeah, I think you could probably count on the odds saying we're not going to lose 18 WAR because we lost Alvarez again. So I assume there was another 10th of WAR out there somewhere. That probably would have resulted in 3 or 4 games, which we lost the division by 3 games. Certainly makes that Seattle series at the end of the season a lot more interesting if you've got a lead versus being tied going into it. Injuries were a thing. Having younger players in key roles was a thing. Having a manager who was learning on the job was a thing. But I think there's a lot of different things that went into what resulted in this season. There's a lot of different things that could happen to make next season completely different. But some of those things, health, you can't really account for, because one of the things I get into the weeds with people is, well, Dana Brown should have had ready major leaguers at AAA just to come in and fill up. Nobody knew Yordan Alvarez was going to miss 120 games or whatever it was. Nobody knew Jake Myers was going to be a key to the season and miss most of the second half. Nobody knew Jeremy Pena was going to miss a month. You can't stash ready major leaguers in Sugarland because they also have careers and they want to go play for major league teams and not just wait around on the chance that somebody's injured. Could you have predicted pitching was going to go as bad as it did? Maybe. I think in hindsight, it's certainly a mistake to go, well, we've got McCullers and we've got Javier and we've got France and we've got Garcia all coming back. So we can,
he's doing that again because now again, but Dana Brown said in his, well, let me go back to one point real quick first. After that Dodgers series, if the Astros had just gone 500 for the rest of the way, they would have won the division by at least 2 or 3 games. So I do think, and that was the Dodgers series, if I recall, was really the height of the injury. Like you started to slowly get guys back. So you went, what was it, like 10 games under 500? That is a look at the manager situation. I'm sorry. Yeah. It is. It is. But Dana Brown says in his press conference, "Oh yeah, we're in the market for an arm. An arm? One?"
He said the exact same thing he said in the last 3 offseasons.
Oh, and a left-handed bat. Take a shot.
A left-handed bat and a starting pitcher. That's what he has said in the last 3 offseasons. How many left-handed bats and starting pitchers has he acquired?
Well, I mean Sanchez.
So we're 1 for, I guess, 7 opportunities, 6 opportunities. I think at this point it's his new back of the baseball card. We need a starting pitcher. We need a left-handed bat. Where are you putting a left-handed bat right now? There's got to be more happening than just acquiring a left-handed bat. There's going to be some guys on the current roster that are going to have to get moved because you've got to figure out where guys are playing. There's got to be
can I ask you a legal question?
Outfield is going to look like, and you've got to figure out the rotation because right now it's Hunter Brown, a gap, Christian Javier, and then 2 or 3 gaps depending on whether or not you're going with a 6-man rotation. I think Arrighetti's coming back because if we haven't heard about a Tommy John surgery by now, he's probably past that. But that gives you 3.
And I know you're counting on Ulola to come out of AAA, but that, again,
I think your 5th guy is going to be a rookie or a young guy.
And blue ball, obviously, but I think you're going to need both of them. But you can't, to your point earlier about Cam Smith, you can't rely on your rotation being carried by a rookie pitcher.
So, yes, you need a starting pitcher, but you need a starting pitcher who's at a 2 at worst to slot in behind Brown, which means you're going to have to spend money. And then you're probably going to need to acquire 2 of those guys because the odds are somebody's going to get hurt. And you're probably looking at getting another one at the trade deadline. So, realistically, he needs 3 starting pitchers, not 1. And the insistence on I know we love our arm lab, but we're not producing aces. We're producing 3 and 4 starters.
3 or 4 guys, yeah. And then I love our arm lab too, but all of those guys, I mean, I'm not going to blame the pitching lab for the injuries, right? That's stupid. That's low-hanging fruit. I'm not going to blame the pitch clock because all these guys that are getting injured have had the pitch clock literally their entire career now. I mean, Garcia joined the organization in 2017. The pitch clock was introduced in the minors in 2015. They were fast and loose with how they patrolled it, but it was still there. So I don't know. But
even McCullers has genetically better. I mean, his dad was always injured. That was the knock on his dad when he was a major leaguer.
Yeah.
That was the knock on drafting Lance McCullers is that you've got to be concerned with his health because his family has a history of health issues.
So help me correct. So I'm confused about how baseball contracts work. So I know like Christian Walker, for example, if you DFA him, you owe him all his money.
Yep.
But if he's still in arbitration, is that the case? Can you just like say we don't want you anymore and then he's a free agent? Or are those still guaranteed? Because I've seen the word non-tendered before. And I'm not sure
you're talking about.
Well, I don't remember who was mentioned. I just saw that they saw some, like maybe Chas McCormick might be non-tendered. Like, I don't know what that means.
So that is my understanding, and I'm sure we have somebody listening or will watch this later that will correct us, but it ultimately works out to be the same deal, but non-tendered just basically means that we're not going to offer you arbitration and we're not going to offer you a contract regardless of going to. Basically, it's cutting ties. It's an unconditional release.
See, I wish that there was a way in baseball where,
because right now, to your example of Chas McCormick, and I think Luis Garcia is going to be in the same spot.
I think Dubon is still arbitration eligible.
Dubon probably has a trade market somewhere for a utility guy. And you keep one of Dubon and Urias, and honestly, it's whoever's cheaper. Dubon's only benefit over Urias at this point is that he can play center field. And if you're actively shopping Jake Myers, which a lot of fans are suggesting right now, that may be an issue until you know that Jacob Melton's your guy, for instance. I'm not sold on Jacob Melton, but just pick a guy. I've seen a lot of Zach Cole's going to be your starting center fielder too, which is way premature, but that's neither here nor there. So I think there's McCormick and Garcia are very likely to be non-tendered, which means there is going to be no further conversation. We relinquish our rights to you, unconditional release. Good luck.
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, and
Garcia's career is probably over. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'm familiar that even when we do that, there's some medical responsibility to continue to pay his medical bills and get him through rehab and all that kind of fun stuff, even though he's not technically part of the organization. I'm not clear on all how that works. But DFA is different in that you have you're basically opening up a 10-day window to either trade or release them. And if you release them, trade, put in AAA, which they have to accept, or release them in minors. So there's different machinations. The non-tender is what's going to happen to a couple of guys on this roster right now. Who there's just I don't know that there's a market for Chas McCormick.
Yeah. I mean, I do think some hard decisions have to be made. A pitcher is not going to be the one to do it.
No, you need three.
You need three.
Where they're coming from.
You need three, and you need to. I mean, there are no band-aids, particularly like it's a loser mentality. If we're going to acquire one more pitcher, and then we're going to let everybody that's injured come back. Like I suspect Javier will be much better next year.
Well, and when I say three, I don't mean that we have to pick up 3 Dylan Ceases. Nobody's intending that Jim Crane is going to open up the wallet enough to sign Dylan Cease and the other top 2 free agent pitchers. That's not a thing that's going to happen. But somebody who is historically someone who can pitch innings and keep your team in ball games and is a veteran and has a track record. You've got to have some more guys like that in your rotation because we just don't have those guys. I'm still high on Arrighetti if he can stay healthy. But I don't know that you can bet your season on Spencer Arrighetti. No. So there's got to be a lot of changes to the 26-man and ultimately the 40-man to reflect what needs to happen because this team has pitching problems. It has offensive problems. It has too many infielders for too few positions and a way unproven outfield outside of Jordan, who should be a DH. So
that's why I hope if Crane's going to make a GM change, it needs to be now because there are a lot of things to figure out.
Yeah. I mean, you would like to have a new GM. The manager is less important in that unless it's some guy that people just want to play for kind of thing. But the GM has to be involved in free agency because I don't think the Astros can survive another round of Jim Crane drafting Jeff Bagwell or Reggie Jackson to come sign free agents for them.
Yeah, I don't think we can. Looking at the transitioning for a little bit, looking at Texas A&M football schedule.
Can we use a different word? I don't want Greg Abbott to send it.
We've already been canceled because we apparently didn't say enough leveled up.
A sticker, that's all.
We just said Charlie Kirk had a sticker, and then we make sure we pronounce him as our Jesus. Texas A&M football schedule, it's possible they run the table up until at least November. I mean, they are going to be favored to win all of their games except for the last one.
No, we haven't won in Death Valley at LSU. since 1992. So we're not going to be favored there. And I think looking at ESPN FPI, that's the other one that's going to be an issue. There is cautious optimism in the program about, the ability to do what you're saying and run the table, and some things falling the right way. I could see a world where that happens, but this is a program where nothing ever falls. All the things that have to happen don't fall the exact right way.
The weird thing I saw is that ESPN has Missouri favored to beat you guys, which I think is weird.
Yeah, so that is reflective of our prowess on the road, and excuse me. Historically, this program, and historically meaning the last 10 years, we haven't played well on the road. We haven't played well in conference games on the road. That Florida win last year was the first time in like 5 seasons we had won a SEC road game. Mm-hmm. And if that number's not exactly right, it's not too far off. So we'll see. Notre Dame was the first time we won a ranked road game, true road game in 100 years, seems like. So you got to get by Mississippi State, which is a much improved Mississippi State team this year.
Yeah,
I expect to put up points. I think we outscore them. I've been trying to avoid getting in any kind of Twitter battle with somebody who's wishing one of our wide receivers death because he transferred from Mississippi State to Texas A&M. That's a thing that's happening this week.
Wow. Well, I know that we're mad at Josh Pate.
Sure. And right now I'm not necessarily as worried about Mississippi State or Florida, and those are the next 2 games that come up. But you've got 3 on the road after those 3. So LSU and Missouri and one other that I'm should have pulled it up, but it escapes my mind. You've got to win on the road. Aggie fans are going to be cautiously optimistic because we're off to a good start. We're 4-0 for the first time since 2016. If things go the way they should, we should be 6-0 in 2 weeks. That's a giant statement because we routinely fall on our faces against teams like Mississippi State that we should beat handily and don't. We tried to do it against Auburn, although watching that game back without emotion, I can say that game was never as close as the 6 points that we ended up by.
No, a combination of an excellent Aggie defense and some of the most inept quarterback play I've ever seen. Definitely. Yeah, that game was never in question.
So, A&M certainly played well defensively, and they have to continue to do that while the offense figures things out.
Are you worried about the number of hits it seems like Marcel Reed has taken? Because he seems like he's kind of getting the crap kicked out of him every now and again.
I'm far more worried about – you're worried about your quarterback in Division I ball all the time because it's very rare that any program goes through an entire season with their starting quarterback starting –
What are you talking about? Games. I don't understand. I don't think that's ever happened to Texas, so I don't know.
You're right because you guys are charmed and you live that life where nothing bad happens. Good job.
Quinn Ewers with like a word.
We're going to ignore everything that happened from Mac Brown to Sark. Tom Herman, who?
Yeah, Tyrone Swoops, baby.
He's the next Vince Young.
Oh, boy. He would have been a great tight end, though.
But he's the next Vince Young.
Yeah.
And then you had the next Colt McCoy. You had a bunch of next Colt McCoys.
We had a lot of
the only real difference, let's be honest, was Tyrone Swoops was black. So he had to be the next Vince Young. He can't be the next Colt McCoy.
Right. Boosters be boosting.
All of our fan bases are idiots.
They are. I'm a little concerned about Texas and Florida this week. It feels like a bit of a trap game. And I don't think Arch Manning is going to be as well. First of all, Lagaway has looked, and there's no measure to how much worse Lagaway has looked to compare to Arch Manning. Like Lagaway's looked like garbage, whereas Manning at times just has looked. At worst, he's looked meh. But yeah, I had kind of an irrational concern about this particular game, knowing that if Texas drops it, it probably does take them out of the playoffs.
For me, this game is about Arch Manning showing how much progress he's made since Ohio State. Because I don't think you can really gauge anything right or wrong on blowing Sam Houston out or kind of struggling with UTSA or UTEP and the other scrub team you guys played in between those two. This is the first real defense you've seen since week one.
Mm-hmm.
I think Florida, if they haven't given up, will put up a good fight defensively. I don't think offensively they can keep up with you. So I don't expect exactly a high-scoring game unless Arch really gets on track. But I think this is the game that he gets to kind of prove the concept a little bit that we've been working on stuff for these first 4 weeks. Now we're ready to put it in practice kind of thing. I think for the first time you'll see your whole playbook. Because you don't hold it back for conference. You shouldn't be holding it back for Oklahoma and a broken thumb quarterback who's going to give it a go against Texas.
I still think to me, if they roll him out to play against Texas, 2 weeks after a surgery, I think that's
a desperation. That's a desperation move on Oklahoma. If you see John Mateer, it's not because he's tough. It's because Oklahoma truly has no other options.
And all you're going to do is knock the crap out of him enough times to knock him out of the game.
One hit on the hand, and he's done for not just one more game, probably the season at that point.
Yeah.
But I think Florida gives you guys a tougher game than you've had, certainly in the last 3 weeks. I think Arch will have shown some growth. I think the ability to run the ball will ultimately be the tail of the tape. But I still have you guys winning by like 2 scores.
Yeah.
When the bell rings for flex,
I have
the following students please report to Ms. Schaefer's desk.
I have it where I think Texas, again, cautiously optimistic, could go undefeated until Georgia.
Hamilman and Wolfgang Peterson. Will these 5 students please report to Ms. Schaefer's desk as the bell rings for flex? Thank you.
Yeah.
Look, Jim, if you didn't want my take, don't mute me.
I know I muted the wrong microphone. Anyway, your thoughts.
Texas is going to be more talented than every team they face up until Georgia. I don't know what team Georgia is going to be at that point because I think losing to Alabama the way they did is taking a lot of wind out of the sails. So Georgia could be the kind of team that rebounds really strongly from it, or they could be the kind of team that dwells on that loss for a long period of time. Either way, I don't think your schedule is what I would consider daunting. I don't think A&M has a daunting schedule either. I think both programs got fairly favorable schedules for the last 2 years. The difference is that Sark so far has been able to navigate those pitfalls and continue to win games, even when Quinn Ewers goes out for a couple of starts, because he's been able to diversify his offense and had a really good defense in SEC play. That really good defense isn't going anywhere. So that to me is the difference between you and anybody else you're playing the rest of the way. For A&M, it's the same question mark about we can get off to a really good start, and that might be 7-1 or 7-0 or 6-1. What happens in those last 4 or 5 games? We're going to beat Stanford, but everything else is like until you do it. Are you going to beat South Carolina? Are you going to be able to stay in the game and actually score an offensive touchdown against Texas in Austin? It's almost more frustrating than being bad. That you're kind of like right on this cusp and you just can't get over. And I know there's a lot of us on the A&M side that are like, until I see us get over it, it's hard to emotionally invest. Good news for me, and I guess the bad news for my checking account, is that A&M is putting out throwback merchandise. And so now I'm buying throwback merchandise because I'm a sucker with throwback merchandise. And I've somehow worked it out in my head that buying new merchandise in the middle of the season that's throwback won't jeopardize this season. That's real. I can prove it on a computer.
We are cut from the. It's pretty sharp too. The throwback merch is really good.
I had to resist buying the entire tracksuit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I saw something at the co-op that you would have liked, and it was basically like, remember those old fuzzy polos from the 70s, but it was just burnt orange with a white Longhorn stitch, not even the logo, just the word. And I was like, should have grabbed that. Yeah. I guess at least a good thing is before we do play, we both get easy games because you've got Sanford and we've got Arkansas.
I mean, you never know with Bobby Ball what you're going to get, but what I can almost guarantee you're not going to get is any kind of defense because they weren't playing it all that well to begin with. And Petrino's first move as interim head coach was to fire the entire defensive football staff.
Yeah, he's angling to keep that job after this, isn't he? That was good. Yeah,
and I would assume if there's a guy that has skeletons in the closet, or knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak, on that campus still to this day, it would be Bobby Petrino, who would keep receipts for that sort of thing.
Yeah, he would keep receipts.
I think, like a certain other aged leader in this country, it's gonna be really hard to get him out of his office when the time comes. So we'll see how that goes. But we both play Arkansas this year, I think, and I am not enthused about going to Vietnam for a number of reasons, but I don't think it's going to be the football that I'm worried about.
No, I don't think so either. All right, well, that is going to wrap us up. Andy, you and I will be back on Monday. I might do something tomorrow with some Astros stuff. I don't know, but you and I will be back for our full show on Monday, hopefully wrapping up, at least getting an idea of what's going on with the Astros and seeing the Longhorns and the Aggies take that next step. Until then, for Andy, I am Jim, and this has been Off Day with Ballpark Nation.